Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Carm Capriato Town Hall Academy with a great title, Maybe You Need a Boss. What the heck is that all about? Maybe you need a boss. Interesting. You know what? I can relate to that, and I'll tell you a story here in a minute. Great to have you with us. Advancing the aftermarket is what we're here to do. It's the original automotive aftermarket, single subject weekly town hall. And we always have a guest panel. Who the heck is with us today? Let me see. Ah, friends. It's always great to have friends on Black Friday. I just want you to know that. Ryan Clough is here, who actually brought me this topic. Hello, Ryan.
Hey, Carm.
Good to see you, man. Dubworks and Avid Auto Works in Cincinnati, Ohio. Avid Auto Works is a Avid Auto Works. Let me read my writing the right way. Complete with a team of factory-trained career automotive individuals specializing in the service and repair of all major foreign and domestic vehicles, which means you went from Dubworks that was specifically Euro, right? Ryan? Ryan?
Yeah, can you hear me, Carm?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Did you hear what I was saying?
Yes, it's my second store. I have a Euro shop and an all makes and model shop.
And it all makes some models great. I love Avid Auto Works, Dubworks. You has some of the most cleverest names I know in the industry. Glad to have you here, my friend. Reggie Stewart is here. Two shops, Reggie's Motorworks and Noble Auto Service in Noblesville, Indiana. Euro specialist.
That's right. Oh,
Cool.
Reggie's Motorworks is a Euro specialist, and Noble Auto Service is all makes and models. They're actually right next door to each other.
That's right. I did read about that. Where did I read that? Maybe in your bio. It
That's
shares a common driveway.
That's right.
Is there synergies, huge synergies there with service advisors and stuff?
There is some synergy. The plan to open a general repair shop was underway when the building next door became available, and it was an awesome opportunity to combine some resources. And now we can even help each other when we have overflow in one shop and it's a little quiet in the other shop. So we work back and forth really, really well.
I'm a curious guy, so I have to ask this question, even though it's off topic. When someone walks into either store, do they know that the other building is part of your operation?
The staff makes them aware most of the time, like because Reggie's existed so long before Noble. A lot of our branding when we opened Noble Auto Service says powered by Reggie's Motorworks because we already had established that brand and that name in the community.
Cool. Nice. Like that. And also with us is Greg Bunch from Aspen Auto Clinic. 5 locations, Greater Denver, Colorado. Hello, Greg.
6 now since their last. Got to update that. Now, for you fact checkers out there, it's not on the website yet because it's a fresh acquisition that hasn't been rebranded yet. But we do officially have 6 now. Happy to say.
I love this. Every time I talk to Greg, I really should say any new stores. And yeah, the answer is yes. Greg's also the president of Transformers Institute Coaching Company, which Reggie and Ryan are part of, which is so cool. Glad to have you here, guys. Listen, I want to stop for a moment and thank our great partners of the Town Hall Academy. Let's face it, technicians are your inventory of time, and it's the only inventory that expires every minute of every day. Maximize sales and speed to get the cars moving through your business a whole lot faster. Learn more at getshopware.com. Yeah, you're running a busy, actually just running a busy shop can be a huge challenge. With Broadly's web chat feature, you can respond to a customer's question right on your phone anywhere at any time. And be in touch with your customer inquiries on the web at getbroadly.com/chat. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and thanks. You know what we're doing next Tuesday? As always, every week, Tuesday, live, and of course, you can listen to the podcast of Aftermarket Weekly. It will be Becky McGinnis from Auto Vantage Service Center. That'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see her place. Guys, you need a boss. Maybe you need a boss. I'll tell you, there was a point in time in business for me, I knew everything. And I'm not sure. I mean, there were no coaching companies. There was just nothing back then that would help me. Except, yeah, I did do some reading. I read some industry magazines, and I said, "Ooh, that's interesting. What should I learn or know about that?" But still, I'm the boss, and every decision ends up with me. And Greg, just between you and I think this industry has blossomed so much in the last, say, 8 years because of the access to guys like you and to other coaches in the entire industry and the consultants that are willing to say, you know what, I love what I do, but I really think I could do even more. And they form themselves either a coaching or a consulting company, or they become trainers. And I love the fact that we have so many great ones in our industry, and yet there aren't enough shop owners that have a coach or a consultant. And that's what this episode's really about. Maybe I need a boss. And in my case, when I look at what we have today, and I think back to when I was, maybe 30 years ago, I really needed to hire someone to hold me accountable. And so, Ryan, when did you realize that you needed to have someone tell you what to do?
Well, I think I've heard some version of this, from other shop owners, and maybe it's common, or maybe it was more common, 10 to 20 years ago, but I kind of felt that I operated in my own space, and I evolved as a technician, so I didn't necessarily have a business skill set, but I was, like a lot of them out there, proud of what I'd accomplished. But just when did I first think that I needed a boss? Well, starting out as a technician, it's like what you don't know what you don't know. I certainly knew how to fix cars, but there were a lot of management, sales, marketing things that I didn't know. But it was more that I didn't know them. It was I didn't even know that there was something to know. I was very much in my own world, doing my thing, successful. Depending on how you look at it, I suppose there's many different levels of success. And I think what was really missing for me was perspective. I didn't speak much with the shops local. I felt they were maybe my competition, and I didn't know shops that were, out of town. And, as someone who started their own business, I worked hard. I didn't take a lot of vacations. I didn't travel much. And it really took some traveling for me, and a unique story that a lot of people have heard, where I broke down and met a well-known shop owner and saw a shop, got that perspective kind of serendipitously. And I'm like, oh, wow, here's somebody else that's doing the same thing that I'm doing. And hey, by the way, boy, they certainly seem to have some different results. And that person happened to come from a business background, not as a technician. And perhaps that had something to do with their approach, which did involve using a coach. Needless to say, I was impressed with that operation and interested to also speak with the coach. And I think after talking with this particular coach, it all of a sudden just a light bulb went off, like, oh, wow, boy, I thought I knew some stuff, but there's all this other stuff that I don't know. And I became very interested and driven at that point to learn these other things.
You know what I love about what he just said, guys? You allowed yourself intuition and curiosity that drove your decision to say, I don't know what I don't know. I mean, people can come up to you and say all kinds of great things. Greg, I'm sure I could sit down with you. You could say a ton of super stuff to me, but if I don't let it sink in, I don't think about what you said. I don't be curious. I don't say, how can I be better? How can my business be better? How can my life or world be better based on what Greg just shared with me? That's really asking for an accountability partner, and you don't even know it.
Absolutely. I think there's a bit of like serendipity. Is that what you said, Ryan? That the shop owner that he just was talking about, I just spent the last 7 days with at a Mexican resort together, enjoying some golf and sunshine. And so it's so funny how this all comes around full circle. But before I started my business, I had a manager that brought this up to me, and he said, I'm not really your boss. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, the customer is all of our boss. They decide whether we get a paycheck or not. And so even before I started my business working for other people, I always had that at the back of my mind that if we do our job correctly, then the boss is going to give us a check, right? We're essentially, doesn't matter if you're on salary, flat rate, commission, whatever. At the end of the day, we are all on commission, because if that paycheck doesn't come from the customer, the money doesn't come from anywhere. And so, when you asked that about, who's your boss, it's good for me. It's good for all of us to always think about that. At the end of the day, truly the customer, the person that writes our paycheck is the boss. They have that ultimate veto power to say you're going to get paid or not.
Guys, what does it take to get open-mindedness or to cross that barrier that you've set up? Be it maybe it's ego that that I think I know everything I know, but I don't know anything that I don't know. What's that open-mindedness, Reggie? Did it ever hit you?
It definitely hit me. In fact, I think ego is a great term to use. Kind of like Ryan, and Greg, I started. Well, maybe me different. I didn't start in the automotive world at all. I've never worked in another shop. So I don't even know what that looks like. So I start this thing from nothing. I actually started my business taking old BMWs apart and selling parts on eBay, and that evolved into people wanting me to work on their cars. Fast forward, and I've got employees, and we're doing 10 times what I ever thought I would, and I do have a huge sense of pride in what I've accomplished. But then Ryan mentioned perspective. I start going to trainings, realizing that I don't know everything, and then it really hits me like, man, what I'm doing is okay, but it could be a whole lot better. I'm scratching out an okay living, but I'm not really making the kind of profit that I need to reinvest in my people and in my business to grow it. So I guess I had the maybe we go back to serendipity. I was enlightened by some trainings that I happened to decide to go to. And then from there, I got really, really hungry.
Did you learn from any of the failures that you had?
Every day. Absolutely. I look back, for me personally, there's people that I had hired, both good and bad, that I could have done things very differently with. Keeping good people too long, or not feeding, or keeping bad people too long, or not properly feeding good people.
Right.
Whether that's mainly like in education and or just being a better leader for them.
They call our industry made up of a bunch of independent shops, right? That's because you got a bunch of independent guys and gals that think they know better than whoever they worked for or the dealership they worked at before. So, it works for us, but it also works against us when it comes to, there's right. I think all four of us have talked about this at different times. We go to Ratchet Wrench, we go to Apex, we go to STX, we go to Vision, right? And what do we see? We see a lot of the same familiar faces. It's, the last Ratchet Wrench conference was like a family reunion. But then you go, okay, there's like 200 shop owners here. Where the heck are the other 200,000 that are out there? I don't need no help, right? I'm an independent guy, and and they're like you said, they're eking out a living, but their business could be so much more if they would collaborate, if they would get some help. I go back for myself, right? People are surprised, but I have a business coach, right? Well, what do you mean, Greg? You're already a business coach. Well, I know I got to keep my saw sharpened. I gotta be held accountable just like everybody else. That doesn't make me exempt. The best athletes in the world, the best business people in the world, they all have a coach of some kind. And so to think that you could just literally gut this thing out by yourself, sure, do people do it? That 1% and 1% and 1%, but it's not. You can go so much further with some accountability and some help, for sure.
Guys, how long does it take to have a personal epiphany on something? And I say that kind of in jest, because every once in a while I have one of these, oh my God, those moments. But if you're a business person trying to feed people and take care of customers, pay the bills, they don't seem to come along quick enough. And that's where this whole, maybe I need a boss thing is coming from, because that individual could help motivate away from Greg, what you just brought up, independent think. Can we coin that word, independent think? Ryan, what do you think?
I was going to say, how long does the epiphany take? I would say seconds. And if you happen to be in the particular room and you just hear something, and I remember it was the first group I joined with Greg, another shop owner had just opened a new location and told me how he had like 300 Google reviews in 90 days. And as soon as the words were out of his mouth, I was like, wait a minute, what? You got to tell me about that. And like within seconds, my worldview was broadened. I'm like, okay, there's something more. The more that happens, the more you realize it's the original philosophical adage: the wise person knows what they don't know. It's each time I learn something new, do I feel like I'm smarter, or do I think, wow, I wonder how big the pool of knowledge is, how much there is that I don't know. And I think people get to that epiphany, on their own time. But it's neat, this community of shop owners, and I hope and think that the information revolution, as it were, that we are presently participating in is helping that a lot, make these kind of connections. And it's really neat. But like Greg said, yeah, what about all these other people? Where are they, and what are they doing, and how are they missing out, or why are they missing out? I don't know.
So guys, let's just shame the people who aren't listening, aren't watching, weren't at this conference, that don't go to Vision, don't go to Apex, and on and on. And maybe again, I just coined the words independent think, and it's trust me, it's not mine, but it's a mindset. But what about, I wrote down these words, Greg, get out there. You wouldn't have had that 300 reviews. Are you kidding me? You wouldn't have had that moment had you not put yourself out there.
Yep, absolutely. I remember when I very, very, very first started. In fact, I went to his original seminar with the shop owner that I worked for before I started my own business, and I think he's long retired, certainly out of our industry, Ned Tamarchio, and he was this gruff New Jersey guy, and we went and sat. I think Snap-on did a sponsorship, and we listened to him for a couple hours. And then I looked him up when I started my own business. He had sent me a flyer or something, and I jumped on an airplane, went to Vegas, and man, it was just a weekend getaway. But when you were with Ned, it wasn't a getaway. I mean, he hammered truth into you like no one's business. But that was really the foundation for me to go, hey, I got to get outside myself. Yes, I'm a good technician. Yes, I'm a good service writer. But there's so much more to this business that I don't know. And what better way to learn than to find somebody that's been there, done that before. And that started my pathway to being someone that looks always for more information on how to be a better business owner.
Okay, no follow-up on that. I'm being quiet, guys, just in case you've got much more intelligent things to say than I do. Hey, let's take a break for a minute and thank our partners. How much paper have you touched today? Those are piles of time stacked all over the shop. Think of what you could do with all that time and how many more cars you could get through the door. Cha-ching! It's time for a digital shop management system. GetShopware.com. Lots of companies say that they can help your shop get more reviews, but what do they really offer? Broadly is the only platform that partners with Google for reviews and messaging in the auto space. On the web at getbroadly.com. So everybody's got coach. Like you said, Greg, huh? Tiger Woods probably has a putter coach, an irons coach, and probably a long ball coach. And when he was at the height of his... If I knew more
about golf, I would know what all that is.
Yeah. Yeah, but he was at the height of his career, what do they call them? Swing coaches. I mean, I may not have gotten that right, but why not a small business entrepreneur in our, technician turned businessman turned entrepreneur? Don't entrepreneurs, aren't they always desirous of learning new things and to take their business to levels that are uncompromising new and better levels?
Yeah, so there's kind of a concept I want to speak about that, because you've got, if and you'll hear me if you ever hear me speak, right? I'll talk about you need to have a great business attorney, you need to have a great accountant, but realize the accountant's job is to keep you out of trouble with the IRS. They're to keep, for the most part, they come from an extremely conservative way of looking at things. Same with a good business attorney. They're going to put layer after layer of protection because you're hiring and you're paying them to keep you protected. But what I have to tell people is don't forget, first and foremost, you're the entrepreneur, you're the risk taker, you're the one that went out on a limb and risks, your financial future to start this business. So yes, listen to them, but you also have to remember they're not the entrepreneur that you are. And it's the same thing. We all would not be as successful as we are if we didn't have great support and employees behind us, helping us fulfill our vision. But remember, we are the person, if you're the shop owner, you're most likely the person with the biggest vision. And I think there's a very important piece of mutual accountability where your executive team, you have an open door. They have a right to go, hey, Greg, that's a crazy idea, and we don't think it'll work. And to allow that kind of feedback and input, because if you don't, you can easily become that emperor with no clothes, and you're out there and everybody's afraid to tell you no. But you need your team to be able to tell you, hey, that's a great idea. Let's go for it. Hey, that's a great idea, but the timing's not right. Or I know you think that's a great idea, but in reality, we just don't think that's going to work. Do you have veto right? Could you still run head first into that wall if you want to? Absolutely. It's your money. It's your risk. But I see too many shop owners that think they're above their employees and they don't allow that input. And then when they hit a wall, their employees may or may not still be there. And if they're there, they're whispering under the breath, well, I kind of told them so. So I think there's a very, very important balance that, we understand that we have some mutual accountability to our employees for the success of our companies. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It sure does. Ryan, the whole accountability piece, I think is so important. Did that really catapult you as a business owner?
For me, it was definitely a journey, and I imagine it is, for a lot of people. You mentioned before, like the word entrepreneur, and I think if you come from a classic startup background, you have some pretty clear ideas about, resources and all of that. But there's just so many people out there that started out as technicians in our industry or maybe a family business. And I just call it the tradesperson's dilemma. They're just, really focused on fixing the car. And so I don't know, for me, when I think about accountability, I really just think about this journey and kind of being really focused on the trade and fixing the car, and just this slow evolution into a really bigger picture that encompasses a lot of what everyone said, like what Greg said about, wow, like the customers, like customer service, like if they're my boss, well, wow, maybe marketing matters. Maybe how we present ourselves, if we wear clean shirts, like, well, that has nothing to do with fixing the car. What if we call them, after we're done, like, how about that? And then, like our employees, like Greg also said, keeping them, sometimes like I almost view the role I play as, actually another good analogy would be like, wasn't it King Arthur had the Knights of the Round Table? There was a round table, so they all had some kind of equity. Yes, they're like, we use the term veto power. I do, business owners going to retain that, but maybe in an ideal situation, it doesn't come across that way. It says, hey, we're all kind of playing on this team. And if we all do our job and we all work with A players and we're empowered to make decisions, and we could question the owner if it came up, and that owner would be receptive to it. And it feels much more like this team environment. And this is just all part of this journey and evolution to way back in the day, thinking about fixing the car, to understanding that, man, we're just part of this large, I don't know, like whatever you want to call it, group of business owners, group of automotive owners in the United States, and there's customers and there's employees, and it's an organization, and there's a lot of different aspects to it. And we have our customers and our employees, and I'm kind of a part of that. Again, kind of retaining my veto right, but again, not to kind of get too far out there, but we originally started this for accountability. It does kind of create some really interesting questions, like, yeah, man, I'm like accountable to everyone and no one all at the same time, and kind of like gets a little bit like intense sometimes.
You know, go ahead, Greg or Reggie.
I would even, build on that and talk about the accountability piece. And I would say in my business, I've gone in seasons where I need different types of accountability. There was a time when I needed to be held accountable to push forward or understand the business better. And then there's times like I'm a very driven person. So like on any given day, I'm usually I don't usually need to be accountable for trying to push a growth initiative, but I might need to be held accountable for attention to detail, or my staff, like Greg said, reeling me back in if I'm trying to go too hard too fast. So for me, it's just been whether I need a quote unquote boss or not has changed depending on where I'm at in my business and who I need to or what area I need some accountability or guidance or bossing in.
So I think what you're saying is if you're maintaining or growing, you may need a different approach.
I would certainly think so. Yes. I'm growth oriented. That's why I belong to Transformers. And that's why I'm always looking for how the business is going to grow and the next location or next opportunity, whatever the case may be, and how I can take care of what I have while I'm doing that. At the same time, if I were content with, I have an awesome team, an amazing client base. If I were completely content with that, I might need a different kind of boss because I might fall asleep at the wheel.
Carm, I had a recent situation where we were talking about this mutual accountability with our team, where I had found a shop that was for sale and I was ready to charge forward. I was, I pushed my agenda pretty hard, and my director of ops, president at Aspen, it wasn't sitting well with him. And, I'd push back and, well, what about this? And what about that? And he would push back. Well, did you see this? Did you see that? And ultimately, the deal did not come together. And really part of it was like, hey, I'm not going to force this down him. If he doesn't have a good vibe about it, he doesn't feel like he can make this thing work. Yeah. Of course he would say, hey, it's your company. If you want to do it, I'll give it all I got. But at the end of the day, I'm like, no, there's something there that he senses that I'm not seeing. And sure enough, that deal fell apart. And the store that came up, I don't know, 2 months later was so much of a better deal. The pricing, the demographic, the staffing, the reputation. I mean, it's just hands down. If we would have jumped on that, I might have missed the second opportunity. So again, that mutual accountability, saying I'm just not going to be going out and doing all this acquisition and then forcing it on my team. I want them to have buy-in in what I'm doing, or I'm willing to walk away from it.
Guys, is one of the reasons that people or shop owners in our industry don't buy in to the fact that they need an accountability partner, a consultant, a coach, a boss, is they just don't know how to start?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, they like I think Brian, you said you didn't know what you didn't know until you met Brian and go, wait a minute, there's more to this big picture than what I was seeing. Absolutely. And I think people, right, we hear it all the time, Ryan's been in the coaching business, long time too. Well, I can't afford that and I don't have the time to do that. Well, that's the two worst excuses. You've got to make that sacrifice sometime in order to get to the next level.
So I meet Ryan at an event because I finally got out there. Okay. And am I going to an event because I'm getting out there to learn what's going on in the real world of the independent automotive aftermarket? Is it going to be very difficult for me to walk away and say, I need to implement these 500 things and actually really get it done? What's the transition like when you find someone to work with?
I almost feel like, when you're in that I don't know what I don't know category, if you've been to at least a couple events, or if you haven't, I I tell everyone, I might sit through a 4 or even an 8-hour present. Oh no. Am I out? Did I
Not
fade
yet.
out?
You're
You're
here.
still there.
Okay, good. I saw my screen go black. I always feel that if I sit through any presentation, an hour, 4 hours, 8 hours, I can always take something away with me. So bare minimum, it's always worth going to an event or a class. I'm going to get something out of it. I think that there are these situations that are going to happen. The more you keep going and putting yourself in the situations, you're going to come across people, and someone will speak to you differently. There might be a different shop owner that you resonate with. That person might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. They might tell you about their business, and it's just going to click in your head. You're going to be like, man, I resonate with that person, and they're getting these very different results, and I kind of want to get that. And to me, that's kind of a signal that, hey, there may be something else out there for me. I think the common or the logical paths, to proceed or to kind of, get there is going to be to join a group, to get a coach, and perhaps that person shares their story for how they got there, and maybe they use that, or even if they didn't, what resources are out there? How can I get, there's probably a few people who have not used a coach or even a group and just like scour every Facebook group and go to every conference and take lots of notes. Probably not, because I think, again, the accountability piece, man, that's a big part of having a boss, is who am I going to be accountable to? Like, accountable to grow. I mean, if I just show up every day and stay busy, I don't know, maybe my customers are happy enough, or they're not telling me that they're not. That's always a big worry of mine. Maybe they'll leave and not tell me they weren't completely satisfied. So I don't know if that answers that question.
I want to go around the room and ask a question. Ryan, before you owned your shop, did you have a boss?
I worked a couple of jobs. Probably just enough, but I got started pretty early, and that's
Okay.
probably an interesting distinction, that I didn't have a lot of bosses in my life. So,
Reggie, how about you?
I worked a lot of little jobs, but the most recent job before I started my shop, I worked under a fantastic entrepreneur. So he helped mentor me, and my mom was an entrepreneur as well. So just in my blood.
Greg, did you ever have a boss?
I did quite a few.
And were you able to pull some accountability piece that taught you as you became your own boss, that they helped me, so I need to continue to get help?
No, it's interesting you bring that up, because looking back, I really, it wasn't even the automotive industry. It was one of my first kind of white collar jobs. I was a headhunter for an engineering company, just like early 20s, needed a job, got training. They actually did professional development. They actually, worked on helping us be professional. When I got in the automotive, it was because I liked cars. But yeah, my first shop I worked at, no professional development. One guy was just a complete jerk. The other, the shop was full of people that did drugs and alcohol, and I was there because I liked the cars. Like, it wasn't any kind of professional development. And really, throughout my automotive career, I had one owner that poured a lot and helped me, really taught me service advising at a next level, and really understanding that part of it. But I can look back and say I kind of sorely was disappointed in the lack of professional development offered at the places I worked at before. And so, and I would say for years and years in my original, I didn't even understand that concept, and didn't spend a lot of time pouring it into people myself, because I had never had that example. And the shop I worked at before I started my own business, I had P&L responsibility, meaning I got a bonus on it, but I got a P&L and I got some scribbles on the side and said, here's your bonus. But I never once, and I didn't know to ask, but like, there was no explanation. It was just a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper to me. I had no idea. Okay, I think this just means if I sell more, that number will be bigger. So I just went and tried to sell more. I didn't understand margins. I didn't understand P&L. I didn't understand tech productivity. There was a lot that I did not know. And I don't think he knew either. He was a not industry guy, and it was, hey, there's money in the bank. Just keep doing what you're doing.
I hear so often from people and from people inside the industry that says, "Hey, people found me because of you. They listened. I met them at things. Heard you on one of Carm's podcasts, and for 6 years, 1,000+ episodes, advancing the aftermarket was my passion. To take information, to take some of the essential voices of the industry, get them out there to bring their insights and their wisdom, and but here's the point. You remember you said, Ryan, you were saying, I went, I listened, I took notes, I listened to the podcast, I go to the show notes page, I write down these things. These are bullet points for me. But I still believe, and Greg, tell me if I'm right or wrong, that we are really advancing ourselves in the industry. I think we're growing, we're getting bigger and better. I mean, that top 10% years ago is probably the top 20 today, because there are people that are learning from each other. And as the bottom rises, so does the top. I mean, are you seeing that from your perspective, Greg?
I see two alternate universes right now. People don't recognize it, but 6,000 independent shops went out of business last year. A lot of them, didn't make it through COVID or decided, hey, enough is enough, I'm going to pull the plug. And then other people just have been growing and booming, and a lot of guys in Transformers are buying shops left and right, and really, really growing and expanding their business and putting in district managers and operations managers and building true, large organizations that I think are going to dominate the future. I think, people that have heard me speak before, I think, being multi-store is going to be the wave of the future. And, a lot of that is available to us on the market right now through acquisition. So I do think, to answer your question, sorry, that was a long answer, but there are two universes right now, Carm. There's people that are really struggling, but we never talk to them. We never hear from them because they're underneath the hood right now. And they don't have time for anything that we're talking about. And other people that are taken to the next level are going to do phenomenally well over the next 10 years.
Craig, the ones that are struggling, and Reggie, Ryan, come on in on this, but the ones that are struggling out there, do they have any kind of extended network in their area? Do they know a shop down the road in the next town? And if you're in the next town and down the road, can you get this person and drag them to a virtual class, to this podcast, to an event? Are people willing to go, or are they just so consumed in work and wrenching?
I think they're consumed in wrenching, or they have blinders on. At least it seems like the people that want it seem to seek it out, and the people that don't, I don't know. It's frustrating a lot of times to see businesses that are just stagnant or going backwards, because when business itself is readily available, I mean, the opportunity, as Greg said, is incredible right now. And to see, shop owners that aren't seeking that help, or in some cases they're seeking the help, but then rebelling against it, or not following that boss's advice. You kind of just wonder what there are times when you wonder if certain shop owners would have been better off remaining technicians, if they're not wanting to actually own and run a business and grow.
What a great point.
I've had that conversation. Like, well, why do you want to have your business? Oh, because technicians, right? I say, man, you have no idea how many years it took me before I made the same amount as I could as a technician, with a lot more headaches. Like, it's not about fixing cars. It's about running a business. They're two separate skill sets. And if you're doing that because you like fixing cars, maybe rethink that, because there's a heck of a lot of 6-figure technician jobs out there right now with a lot less headaches than owning a shop.
Can I make a political comment?
It's your show. You can say
It's
what
your show.
and I rarely do this, but here's what, every time I hear people and my mind goes crazy. Reggie, thank you, and Greg, for this. I think of a shop owner who is kind of struggling. Perfect word, Greg. I love that word. He's like a container on a supply ship out in the ocean waiting to come in to the LA docks. I don't know where I'm going with this, but go with me here, right? And it's almost like we did a supply chain part 2 in Apex, and these guys were saying that it was $1,500 for a container 3 years ago, and now they're bidding up to $20,000 to get that container on the ship and offloaded, right?
Right.
They're willing to pay all kinds of money. And so I'm thinking of the technician, to your point, Greg, where it took you how many years to earn the same thing that you were making, why, with the need for great quality technicians today, aren't we just saying, you know what, I would have a whole lot better life. Let me find the right culture, the culture I always dreamed I wanted to build. The training that I could never get to, someone who's willing to pay me to go to training, give me the right proper equipment to do, because I can't even pay for any equipment. I can't even pay my parts bill. I mean, this could be the biggest revelation of why you don't need a boss. go work for somebody.
Yeah,
I got on my stool here.
I'm sorry. I saw a meme yesterday that just tickled me. It said, "What's it like owning a business?" And they said, "Have you ever drank a Red Bull just to relax?" I said that. I was walking down the hall with Brian Sump, and we both got a good laugh at that, because man, ain't that the truth sometimes?
Well, people want to start a business so they don't have a boss. And then as a one-man show, I mean, you have more bosses. Like Greg said, your customers are your bosses. And when you're a one-man show, man, you can't get away from it. That is, entrepreneurial freedom doesn't start for quite some time after you start to grow your business.
Boy, is that a mouthful. Ryan, did you have anything?
It's definitely a set of trade-offs. You can get a little bit of the grass is greener. Most people that I speak to that, are keep at it, they just really value their personal freedom with good reason. And sometimes they end up making less money, because of it. But they're like, you know what? I just really like doing my own thing.
Right.
You'd mentioned, all the shops closing up, and I was just thinking that the paradigm has really shifted, and it continues to shift so quickly. That network you mentioned, it's out there for every shop owner, whether they're willing to tap into it. But I feel like I see more and more that just, they've done it the same way for so long, and they just don't really want to change, or they're tired, or it's a new set of skills. Just like I had to, take my skills of working on the cars and learn sales and, management and marketing. Even if you had a shop 10 years ago, I think it's just different. The technology, the way we have to interact with customers, with text, with your sponsors, like Broadly, I listened to what Broadly had to say. There's just a lot and I just think that not everybody really wants to do it. They're just tired of learning new stuff all the time. And again, I think the auto industry was a little more static for a long time. And personally, I've gotten used to the change, and it's kind of exciting. It keeps it interesting. It levels the playing field. It gives me, I think, an advantage to kind of try to stay on top. But if you've been in it for a long time, you might be tired of that. And if you're trying to get into it now, you're jumping onto a moving train. So it's a lot of opportunity and challenges, which I don't know. I wish I could have experiences in other businesses to kind of really have something to compare to, but it takes quite a bit of time to learn and master any trade, much less many. So, I know what I know about automotive, and I hear about other industries, but can't really know from personal experience what it's like.
Ryan, if someone, a friend of yours, approached you and they had a gift business and they said, "I really need some help. I know you're a really smart businessman," do you think you could help that person?
I'm always willing to have the conversation, and I'm interested to talk to anybody in a different, because I do think that there are things that we can pull from other businesses that work really, really well. I mean, there's going to be industry specific stuff, but there's definitely, like managing people. That's one. And I have some friends locally that own, non-automotive businesses, and we certainly talk. I think that's another really undervalued kind of channel for automotive shop owners, is to talk to other businesses and see what they're doing and how they're interacting with customers, and steal it, use it.
Guys, I have had, we're going to come back and do our last segment and let you guys have a chance to speak to anything that we didn't get a chance to do. I have so loved where this went. I think we were loosey-goosey. I mean, I know we had some talking points. I'm not sure we covered them all, but I think we went to places that would hopefully stir anyone who's listening to maybe who wants to save their business and save their profession and do something about it. Every piece of paper you touch adds up to seconds, minutes, and hours of your staff's time. Get paper out of your business and unlock your employees' potential with Shopware's digital shop management software. Great people. Tell them Carm sent you. Get shopware.com on the web. Lots of companies say they can help your shop get more reviews, but what do they really offer? Well, Broadly is the only platform that partners with Google for reviews and messaging inside the auto space. On the web at getbroadly.com/chat. Well, if there's anything we've done, guys, is I think we put a lot of stuff out there for people to listen and absorb and change. These are my big takeaways. I'm a fiend of a note taker. Everyone, you should see what my desk looks like with all these little tiny slips of paper. I wrote down the trade person's dilemma. That was a big takeaway for me. I wrote down open-mindedness. Of course, Ryan, I don't know what I don't know. I wrote down stop independent think, and wherever that fits, and I wrote down intuition and being a perpetual student and using some of your soft skills to stop to realize that you may need help and maybe you need a boss. So let's go around the room, put a bow on this for us. Ryan, I'll let you go first. Reggie second, and Greg, you can clean up for us. Ryan,
Sounds good.
I think there's a train going by my office right now, but
yeah. We have had challenges today. Yes.
Yeah. I think just on the chance that there's, a couple of shop owners out there that maybe haven't, reached out for help or don't realize how large the network is, maybe haven't been to a conference, but you're listening to this podcast. There's something, comforting about having someone just tell you what to do. And it may just never have occurred to you. Like, I have my own business. How could anybody else tell me what to do? And it shouldn't be that hard to understand that there might be somebody out there that's done it longer, or that there are best practices for our industry. And there's people out there that know them, that have been doing them for years, that own shops now and have companies that can provide that. And there's no shortage of shop owners out there that have used them. And I just think accelerated their success. I'd like to think that I would have gotten where I am now eventually. I think hiring a boss for me just got me there a heck of a lot sooner. And that cost, because at the time it seemed like a sizable investment, paid itself off in less than a year, and it blew my mind. So that's all. Nothing to lose by reaching out and just seeing what's out there.
If you look at it, Greg and Reggie, as an investment, and if you think about that, it's an investment, that means that you have to give to make it worthwhile. Right. You could invest in an alignment machine, but if you don't sell alignments, you've got responsibility in any investment that you make.
Right.
So that's how I think some of the think on hiring yourself an accountability partner is. Reggie, I'll give you the last word for you.
Yeah, I would say a lot of what it comes down to is what your personal goals are at this season in your business. If you are wanting to grow and you've hit a plateau, then finding that accountability partner or that quote unquote boss is going to be the next step. If you're doing everything you can do and you just can't get past a stopping point, then it's time to invite some feedback. And talking about thinking about some of Ryan's thoughts of going to lots of events, going to the Facebook groups, listening to your show, Carm, taking all those notes. That's all really, really important stuff. And it's all the information there. There's a lot of awesome information there. You're going to have to sift through some things that don't fit you. And I think one of the keys there is, and that's where a real accountability partner that you trust and have that chemistry with helps you filter that and choose what it is that's right for you. You can evolve from it, but if you just try to take it all, there's no way you can do it all. And you need somebody to help you through that order of operations.
Yeah.
So, but lots of opportunity. To me, it's fun. I have a blast out here.
How cool is that? Love your spirit. By the way, here's what you hit me with, the word implement. Because you could take all these notes in the world and if say I have a and I don't do anything with those notes. I loved them. I wrote them down. It must have been something that sparked something in me, but I never did anything about it. And then you have your accountability partner who says, "Okay, we're doing budgets, and we're having a call next Thursday, and we're gonna have the budgets done, or at least a chance for me to look at them and review them." You would have probably never done the budgets for your business or whatever, any KPI management or measurement, had you not had someone say or give you a deadline if you can't give it to yourself. And I think one of the greatest disciplines is to have that accountability partner for a while and build your spine up so that you can implement and hold yourself accountable. And that's just my opinion, and I could be wrong. Greg, I'll give you the last word.
Sure. Our mastermind groups at Transformers Institute are based on the Napoleon Hill style mastermind, which is a collaborative brainstorming model. And when Napoleon Hill interviewed Henry Ford, he said he attributes two things to his ultimate success. And at the time he was interviewed, this in the late 20s, I think, was literally the richest man in the world for a time, Henry Ford. And number one was his mastermind group, or no, I'm sorry. I think number one was Mrs. Ford, and number two was his mastermind group. So the two things that propelled somebody like that to the ultimate success, I think it's important that for those of us that have good, strong, supportive partners, whether that's a true business partner, whether that's a spouse, whether that's a domestic partner, whatever you want to look like, having quote unquote kind of a boss on the other side of our lives, I think helps entrepreneurs, if you've got a good one. So if you've got that in your life, give them special thanks, because it's not easy being married to visionary entrepreneurs. And then number two, and it's whether it's with us or with a lot of the other great organizations out there, we're a little bit different than a traditional 20 group, but the whole concept of meeting and breaking bread and talking business and mutual accountability. There's lots of great groups out there that there's probably nothing that you could invest in that for the amount of money that's going to get your business that much further. If, like Carm, you said, you actually take what you learn and apply it to your business. If you're just there to get your ears tickled, it's not going to do anything. We got to do the heavy lifting, but getting around that kind of wisdom is very, very powerful. And I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have that in my life. And that goes back automotive groups and non-automotive groups. I'm still involved with groups that are not like we talked earlier with other types of business owners. I wouldn't have even started Transformers if I wasn't in one of those groups that said, hey, you need to do this, and here's the steps you need to take. And so very grateful for the people that have poured into my life through those avenues.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for tickling my ears. Appreciate that. Now I have to do something with it. My very own podcast coach that I had for 3 years really helped put me on a trajectory that every once in a while you don't think you can, but you can. And someone has to believe in you to help you with it. Ryan Clough, Dubworks, Avid Auto Works, Cincinnati, Ohio. Thanks for being here, man. Reggie Stewart, Reggie's Motorworks, Noble Auto Service, Noblesville, Indiana, and Craig Bunch, Transformers Institute. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carm.